صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
The Book of Hiring, concerning hiring. Chapter on to hire a pious man. The statement of Allah. Verily, the best of men for you to hire is the strong, the trustworthy. Qur'an, chapter 28, verse 26. And what is said about the honest treasurer, and the person who does not employ the one who is in an earnest pursuit of a job position. Narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, may Allah be pleased with him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The honest treasurer who gives willingly what he is ordered to give is one of the two charitable persons, the second being the owner." Narrated Abu Musa, may Allah be pleased with him, I went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, with two men from a Ash'ari tribe. I said to the Prophet, peace be upon him, I do not know that they want employment. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, No, we do not appoint for our jobs anybody who demands it earnestly. Chapter on to shepherd sheep for qira'at. Footnote: 1 qira'at equals 1/2 daniq, and 1 daniq equals 1/6 of dirham. Sometimes it may be very big as Uhud mountain at al-Madinah. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Allah did not send any prophet, but he shepherded sheep. His companions asked him, Did you do the same? The Prophet, peace be upon him, replied, Yes, I used to shepherd the sheep of the people of Mecca for some qira'at. Chapter on the employment of mushrikun by Muslims if necessary, or if no Muslim is available for that purpose. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, employed the Jews of Khaybar for the purpose of irrigating the land. Narrated Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr employed a mushrik man from the tribe of Bani Dail and the tribe of Bani Abd bin Adi as a guide. He was an expert guide, and he broke the oath contract which he had to abide by with the tribe of Al-Asi bin Wa'il, and he was on the religion of Quraysh, pagans, mushrikun. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr had confidence in him, and gave him their riding camels, and told him to bring them to the cave of Thawr after 3 days. So he brought them their 2 riding camels after 3 days, and both of them, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr, set out accompanied by Amir bin Fuhayra, and the Daili guide, who guided them below Mecca along the road leading to the seashore. Chapter on it is legal if somebody hires someone to work for him after 3 days, or after 1 month, or after a year. When that period elapses, they should carry out their contract. Narrated Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr hired a man from the tribe of Bani Dail as an expert guide who was a pagan, mushrik, follower of the religion of the pagans, mushrikun, of Quraysh. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and Abu Bakr gave him their 2 riding camels, and took a promise from him to bring their riding camels in the morning of the 3rd day to the cave of Thawr. Chapter on employing laborers for services in holy battles. Narrated Ya'la bin Umayyah, may Allah be pleased with him, I fought in Jaysh al-Usra, Ghazwa of Tabuk, along with the Prophet, peace be upon him, and in my opinion that was the best of my deeds. At that time I had an employee who quarreled with someone, and one of them bit and cut the other's finger, and caused his own tooth to fall out. He then went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, with a complaint. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, cancelled the suit, and said to the complainant, Did you expect him to let his finger in your mouth, so that you might snap and cut it as does a stallion camel? Narrated Ibn Jurayj from Abdullah bin Abu Mulaika, from his grandfather, a similar story. A man bit the hand of another man and caused his own tooth to fall out. But Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, judged that he had no right for compensation for the broken tooth. Chapter on if somebody employs someone and tells him the period for which he is employed, is it permissible for him not to tell him the nature of the work? It is permissible if he takes into consideration Allah's statement. He said, I intend to wed one of these two daughters of mine to you, till the end of the verse. Allah is a surety over what we say. Qur'an, chapter 28, verse 27 and 28. Chapter on it is permissible for one to employ someone to repair a wall which is about to collapse. Narrated Ubay bin Ka'b, may Allah be pleased with him, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, both of them, Moses, and al-Khidr, proceeded on till they reached a wall which was about to fall. Sa'id said, Al-Khidr pointed with his hands towards the wall and then raised his hands, and the wall became straightened up. Yarda said, I think Sa'id said, Khidr passed his hand over it and it was straightened up. Musa said to him, if you had wanted, you could have taken wages for it. Sa'id said, wages with which to buy food. Chapter on employment up to midday. Narrated Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, your example and the example of the people of the two scriptures, that is, Jews and Christians, is like the example of a man who employed some laborers and asked them, who will work for me from morning till midday for one qira'at? The Jews accepted and carried out the work. He then asked, who will work for me from midday up to the Salat al-Asr for one qira'at? The Christians accepted and fulfilled the work. He then said, who will work for me from the Asr till sunset for two qira'at? You, Muslims, have accepted the offer. The Jews and the Christians got angry and said, why should we work more and get lesser wages? Allah said, have I withheld part of your right? They replied in the negative. He said, it is my blessing. I bestow upon whomever I wish. Chapter on employment up to the Asr. Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with them, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, your example and the example of the Jews and Christians is like the example of a man who employed some laborers to whom he said, who will work for me up to midday for one qira'at each? The Jews carried out the work for one qira'at each, and then the Christians carried out the work up to the Asr for one qira'at each. And now you Muslims are working from the Asr up to sunset for two qira'at each. The Jews and Christians got angry and said, we work more and are paid less. The employer, Allah, asked them, have I usurped some of your rights? They replied in negative. Allah, said, that is my blessing. I bestow upon whomever I wish. Chapter on the sin of him who withholds the wages of the employee. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Allah said, I will be an opponent to three types of people on the day of resurrection. 1. One who makes a covenant in my name, but proves treacherous. 2. One who sells a free person as a slave and eats his price. 3. One who employs a laborer and takes full work from him, but does not pay him for his labor. Chapter on employment from Asr till night. Narrated Abu Musa, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the example of Muslims, Jews, and Christians is like the example of a man who employed laborers to work for him from morning till night for specific wages. They worked till midday, and then said, "We do not need your money which you have fixed for us, and let whatever we have done be annulled." The man said to them, "Don't quit the work, but complete the rest of it and take your full wages." But they refused and went away, like the Jews who refused to believe in the message of Jesus, peace be upon him. The man employed another batch after them and said to them, "Complete the rest of the day, and yours will be the wages I had fixed for the first batch." So they worked till the time of Asr. Then they said, "Let what we have done be annulled, and keep the wages you have promised us for yourself." The man said to them, "Complete the rest of the work, as only a little of the day remains." But they refused, like the Christians who refused to believe in message of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Thereafter, he employed another batch to work for the rest of the day, and they worked for the rest of the day till sunset, and they received the wages of the two former batches, like the Muslims. So that was the example of this light, Islamic monotheism, the Qur'an, the Sunnah, legal ways of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the guidance which Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, brought, which they, Muslims, have accepted willingly. Footnote: the Jews refused to believe in the message of Isa, Jesus, so all their work was annulled. Similarly, the Christians refused to accept the message of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and thus their work was annulled too. Such people were not rewarded, because they refused to have true faith for the rest of their lives and died as disbelievers. They should have believed in the latest message, for their insistence on keeping their old religion deprived them of the reward which they would have got for their previous good deeds achieved before the advent of the new religion. On the other hand, Muslims accepted and believed in all the three messages and deserved a full reward for their complete surrender to Allah. Al-Qastalani, Volume 4. Chapter on whosoever employed a laborer, and after completing the work, the laborer left the wages and went away. The employer invested that money in some way and increased it thereby, or whoever invested somebody else's money in business and increased it thereby. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, I heard Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, saying, 3 men from among those who were before you set out together till they reached a cave at night and entered it. A big rock rolled down the mountain and closed the mouth of the cave. They said to each other, "Nothing could save you from this rock but to invoke Allah by giving reference to the righteous deeds which you have done, for Allah's sake only." So one of them said, "O Allah, I had old parents, whom I used to provide milk first, and I never provided my family, wife, children, etc., with milk before them. One day, by chance I was delayed, and I came late at night while they had slept. I milked the sheep for them, and took the milk to them, but I found them sleeping. I disliked to provide my family with the milk before them. I waited for them, and the bowl of milk was in my hand, and I kept on waiting for them to get up till the day dawned. Then they got up and drank the milk. O Allah, if I did that for your sake only, please relieve us from our critical situation caused by this rock." So the rock shifted a little, but they could not get out. The Prophet, peace be upon him, further said, The second man said, "O Allah, I had a cousin who was the dearest of all people to me, and I wanted to have sexual intercourse with her, but she refused. Later, she had a hard time in a year from amongst the famine years, and she came to me, and I gave her 120 dinars on the condition that she would not resist my desire, and she agreed. When I was about to fulfill my desire, she said, it is illegal for you to outrage my chastity, except by legitimate marriage. So I thought it a sin to have sexual intercourse with her and left her, though she was the dearest of all the people to me. And also, I left the gold I had given her. O Allah, if I did that for your sake only, please relieve us from the present calamity. So the rock shifted a little more, but still they could not get out from there. The Prophet, peace be upon him, added, Then the third man said, O Allah, I employed few laborers, and I paid them their wages with the exception of one man, who did not take his wages and went away. I invested his wages, and I got much property thereby. Then after some time he came and said to me, O Allah's slave, pay me my wages. I said to him, All the camels, cows, sheep, and slaves you see are yours. He said, O Allah's slave, don't mock at me. I said, I am not mocking at you. So he took all the herd and drove them away and left nothing. O Allah, if I did that for your sake only, please relieve us from the present suffering. So that rock shifted completely, and they got out walking. Chapter on one who employs himself to carry loads on his back and then gives in charity from his wages, and what is said about the wages of porters. Narrated Abu Mas'ud al-Ansari, may Allah be pleased with him, whenever Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, ordered us to give in charity, we would go to the market and work as porters to earn a mud, 2 handfuls of foodstuff. But now, some of us have 100,000 dirham or dinar. The sub-narrator, Shaqiq, said, I think Abu Mas'ud meant himself by saying, some of us. Chapter on wages of a broker. Ibn Sirin, Atha, Ibrahim, and Al-Hasan did not see any harm in them. Ibn Abbas said, There is no harm if one says to a broker, Sell this garment for such a price, and whatever more you get is for you. Ibn Sirin said, If one says to a broker, Sell it for such a price, and if you get more, the profit will be for you, or divided between us. There is no harm in it. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Muslims should abide by their conditions. Narrated Ta'us, Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them, said, The Prophet, peace be upon him, forbade the meeting of caravans on the way and ordained that no townsman is permitted to sell things on behalf of a Bedouin. I asked Ibn Abbas, what is the meaning of his saying, no townsman is permitted to sell things on behalf of a Bedouin? He replied, he should not work as a broker for him. Chapter on is it permissible for a Muslim to work as an employee for mushrikun in a land of infidelity? Narrated Khabbab, may Allah be pleased with him, I was a blacksmith and did some work for Al-As bin Wa'il. When he owed me some money for my work, I went to him to ask for that amount. He said, I will not pay you unless you disbelieve in Muhammad, peace be upon him. I said, by Allah, I will never do that till you die and be resurrected. He said, will I be dead and then resurrected after my death? I said, yes. He said, there I will have a property and offspring, and then I will pay you your due. Then Allah revealed, have you seen him who disbelieved in our ayah, this Qur'an, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, and said, I shall certainly be given wealth and children. Qur'an, chapter 19, verse 77. Chapter on what is paid for ruqyah, that is, divine speech recited as a means of curing disease, with Surah al-Fatiha, when practiced over an Arab tribe. Narrated Abu Sa'id, may Allah be pleased with him, some of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, went on a journey. till they reached some of the Arab tribes at night. They asked the latter to treat them as their guests, but they refused. The chief of that tribe was then bitten by a snake or stung by a scorpion, and they tried their best to cure him, but in vain. Some of them said to the others, "Nothing has benefited him. Will you go to the people who resided here at night? It may be that some of them might possess something as treatment." They went to the group of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and said, "Our chief has been bitten by a snake or stung by a scorpion, and we have tried everything, but he has not benefited. Have you got anything useful?" One of them replied, "Yes, by Allah, I can recite a ruqyah. But as you have refused to accept us as your guests, I will not recite the ruqyah for you, unless you fix for us some wages for it." They agreed to pay them a flock of sheep. One of them then went and recited Surah al-Fatiha. All the praises and thanks be to Allah, the Lord of the Alameen, mankind, jinn, and all that exists, and puffed over the chief, who became all right as if he was released from a chain, and got up and started walking, showing no signs of sickness. They paid them what they agreed to pay. Some of them, that is, the companions, then suggested to divide their earnings among themselves. But the one who performed the recitation said, "Do not divide them till we go to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and narrate the whole story to him, and wait for his order." So they went to Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, and narrated the story. Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, asked, "How did you come to know that Surah al-Fatiha was recited as ruqyah?" Then he added, "You have done the right thing. Divide what you have earned, and assign a share for me as well." The Prophet, peace be upon him, smiled thereupon. Chapter on the taxes imposed on the slaves by their masters, and the leniency in imposing taxes on female slaves. Narrated Anas bin Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, when Abu Thaybah cupped the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, ordered that he be paid 1 or 2 sa'ah of food stuff, and he interceded with his masters to reduce his taxes. Chapter on the wages of one who has the profession of cupping. Narrated Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, was cupped, he paid the man who cupped him his wages. Narrated Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, was cupped, he paid the man who cupped him his wages. If it had been undesirable, he would not have paid him. Narrated Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to get cupped, and would never withhold the wages of any person. Chapter on whoever appealed to the masters of a slave to reduce his taxes. Narrated Anas bin Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, sent for a slave who had the profession of cupping, and he cupped him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, ordered that he be paid 1 or 2 sa'ah, or 1 or 2 mudh of food stuff, and appealed to his masters to reduce his taxes. Chapter on the earnings of prostitutes and female slaves. Ibrahim hated the earnings of female wailers and female singers. The statement of Allah, "And force not your maids to prostitution, if they desire chastity, in order that you may make a gain in the perishable goods of this worldly life. But if anyone compels them to prostitution, then after such compulsion, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful to those women. That is, He will forgive them, because they have been forced to do this evil action unwillingly." Qur'an, chapter 24, verse 33. Narrated Abu Mas'ud al-Ansari, may Allah be pleased with him, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, prohibited from taking the price of a dog, the earnings of a prostitute, and the charges taken by a soothsayer. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet, peace be upon him, prohibited the earnings of slave girls through prostitution. Chapter on charging for the semen of a male animal, that is, copulation of animals. Narrated Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, the Prophet, peace be upon him, forbade taking a price for animal copulation. Chapter on if somebody rents land and he or the owner of the land dies, will the contract be cancelled? According to Ibn Sirin, the inheritors have no right to expel the tenant before the term of the contract has elapsed. Al-Hakam, Al-Hasan, and Ayyas bin Muawiyah said, the contract remains valid till the end of the term. Ibn Umar said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, rented the land of Khaybar on the terms that half the yield would be his share. That contract continued during the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Abu Bakr and the early part of Umar's caliphate, it was not mentioned that Abu Bakr renewed the contract after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, may Allah be pleased with them, Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, gave the land of Khaybar to the Jews to work on it, and cultivate it, and take half of its yield. Ibn Umar added, the land used to be rented for a certain portion of its yield. Nafi' mentioned the amount of the portion, but I forgot it. Rafi' bin Khadij said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, forbade renting farms. Narrated Ubaydullah, Nafi' said, Ibn Umar said, the contract of Khaybar continued till Umar evacuated the Jews from Khaybar.